The the first component, as I said, is the static component. The static component is going to tell you what that person is likely to experience in their life or throughout their life. And the static, or sorry, the dynamic aspect of it is a whole different. It's Are there any visuals? Yes, Jen, there are going to be visuals. Just I just want to clarify what we're going to be looking at, and then you're going to see some visuals. The dynamic aspect of a birth chart will tell you when things are going to take place. Okay, it's more of an advanced technique, and you need to get your base very solid and clear before you can move on to any advanced topics. Okay, so again, in this course, it's a crash course. You will be focusing on what is likely to happen instead of focusing on when it's going to happen, because that's advanced. Okay, we're gonna continue. We're gonna start off with rulerships. Does anyone have any experience with rulerships? I'm pretty sure some of you guys should have an understanding of what the rulerships do. Do you see that? Can you see my screen, the chart?
Yes.
Okay. So diving right into it, this this is the language. Looking at a chart, this is the language that you need to know in order to dissect the chart. And the better you are at this, the faster you'll be able to dissect the chart. It is extremely important for anyone who's looking to get proficient at reading birth charts. These three columns have to be memorized, right? So the very first column, you see numbers. Those are the signs. Like the first sign is Aries, second sign is Taurus, third sign is Gemini, and so on. Okay, so you're going from Gemini, Cancer, Leo in that order. When you're looking at a birth chart, which we're not looking at right now, we're not looking at any birth chart right now. We'll be looking at a birth chart maybe next slide, which is where we're going to be going over houses. Okay, so it is again very important for you to memorize. If you guys want, I can also send you this over email, these slides. I will type out my email address, and if you guys want me to send this to you, including all the slides from the for future classes, I can send it to you. But it is very important. It is very important that you guys memorize this table, because when you're looking at a chart, and if you see number 6, you need to, like, it shouldn't take you any time to realize that 6 corresponds to Virgo, and Virgo, the ruler for Virgo is Mercury. Okay, so the first sign, being Aries, is ruled by Mars. People that are coming from the western side are gonna associate Scorpio with Pluto, but here we're just gonna stick with the 9 planets. Okay. Anyone have any questions with what they're seeing right now? Any confusions? Any questions? No. So here you can see. Okay. As you can see here, it starts off with the first sign being Aries. The Lord is Mars. Same with Scorpio. You're gonna see that every planet is given 2 signs. Just like Mars is given Aries and Scorpio, Venus is given Taurus and Libra, Mercury is given Gemini and Virgo. Sun and Moon are the only planets or luminaries that are only given 1 sign each. Okay. And Jupiter, if you go down the list, Jupiter is given number 9 and number 12, which is Sagittarius and Pisces. Saturn is given 10 and 11. The Western students are gonna probably thinking this is gonna be Uranus, and this would be Neptune according to them, but we're gonna leave them out for now. I'm gonna focus just on these planets. You'll be able to make predictions based on these with no problems. Okay. Everything clear up until this point? I'll send you my email address. And if you want, I can email you. Once you send me your contact, I can send you these slides and you can memorize them as well. Any questions before we move on to the next slide? Which is going to be on houses. Does everyone know what I'm talking about here? Like this is very basic stuff. Is this clear, or is this are there people here who've never seen this before? Anyone? Just so I know who I'm dealing with. And if you don't, then that's no problem. Clean so far. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, you guys can talk, or you can also just message. It would help me understand where you guys are. Okay. So after this, we can move on to the next slide, which is houses. The houses are going to be also very important. Three main players in astrology are going to be houses, signs, and planets. Okay? This is just a prerequisite. Can you guys see the houses slide now?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone know what this house does? Like this, people aware of what the houses do? No? Okay. So here you're looking at a birth chart, okay? I think Himani was referring to Western chart, which is a circular chart. It's just a different way of looking at it. It's the exact same thing, right? So this is going to be your ascendant right here. And here is what the ascendant represents. It represents all of these things. It is you entirely. It is your physical body, your appearance, behavior, just the way you look at life, how you appear, how people see you. This is your rising sign, the rising house. Then the numbers that you see in these houses, okay, the numbers that you see in these houses are not the house numbers. The numbers that you see in these houses correspond to these numbers. So if you right now in the next slide you saw number 1 in the first house, that just tells you that the sign of Aries is sitting in the first house. Okay. You could also have a 2 written here. Would anyone know what sign number 2 would correspond to? Anyone, any idea?
Taurus.
Yes, correct. So it would be Taurus. So if you had number 2 sitting in the first house, this would just tell you that in your first house, you have the sign of Taurus. Okay. So this is your first house. If you wanna analyze someone's appearance, physical body, how their behavior is, how they even interact in general with people, you will look at the first house. Right? The first house is entirely you. This is basically the reference point of the chart. This is the beginning point of a chart. This is where everything starts. It's you, entirely you. And the second house is basically going to tell you how the second house is going to sustain the first house, right? It's responsible for the sustenance of the first house. If the first house is you, what exactly would we require to sustain the first house? Definitely food, right? You need food to sustain yourself. Your family will be there to help you. It also represents your speech, okay? When I say speech, I do not mean what you're saying. Speech, the quality of the speech, the second house is it describes more. It tells you more about how someone speaks or talks, whether they are rough speaker, soft speaker, harsh, fast. Do they talk too fast? You know, it's not necessarily about what they communicate. It's how they communicate it is the second house. Because what they communicate is going to be the third house, which is the house we're going to be analyzing next. Okay. So it is your wealth because we discussed all the things that are going to be sustaining the first house. Any sort of resources that you have. And wealth is also a resource. Food habits. The second house is also going to show you what kind of food you eat because this is your second house also represents your mouth. Okay, this is a little more advanced, but just giving you a rough idea. The kind of planet sitting here will tell me what kind of food you eat, how you speak. Okay, basically, in other words, what's going into your mouth and what's coming out of your mouth, and the way it's coming out of your mouth, your speech. Any questions up until this point?
So this chart is going to be dynamic based on the person's like
Sorry, who's this?
birthday. This is Pawan.
Oh, and so the way these charts are gonna work is that you see how it says number one here and number
Mhm.
two here, number three and so onwards. I don't know if
Yeah,
you can see my cursor, right?
yeah.
These signs will vary. They will change. Based on they will change based on your time of birth. Okay.
Mhm.
We'll get into all that good stuff later, as to how to determine, not determine, but what a chart's gonna look like. One second. I think some people are trying to get in. Oh, okay. Depending on your birth time, this arrangement of the numbers inside the chart is going to change. Okay. Do you know what your rising sign is, Pawan?
Uh, I do not. I mean, mine is Aquarius,
You have Aquarius in the first house, so you would have number 11 in the first house,
11 in that case.
right? I think it's very important we discuss this because this is what throws a lot of people off because people are automatically going to assume that number one in the first house means the first house. You need to memorize that the first diamond here is the first house, regardless of what number is seen in that first house. Okay, the number in those houses simply represent what's it tells you what sign it is, because it would be too much to write Aries and Taurus and so on in that house. You don't have any room to write all that stuff in the house, so they just use the numbers. See what I'm trying to say? So you have number 11 in your first house, which tells me you're an Aquarius rising. The first house is the rising house. Okay. So back to the houses. Um, the second house in this person's chart, if this was a person's chart, tells me that this person has Taurus. It's going to go in this order. If you have 11 here, so this is automatically going to be 12. And after 12, you're going to start from 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. If somebody was a Scorpio rising, right? If someone was a Scorpio in the first house, which is also known as a Scorpio ascendant, It's also known as a Scorpio rising. Can anyone tell me if someone was a Scorpio rising, what number would they see in this in this house? I know we didn't spend enough time on the previous slide, but any idea?
Uh, 8 based on the
Yes,
sequence.
that's correct. You'll see number 8, which is Scorpio, in the first house. So this would tell you that the person is whatever number you see in this house, it tells you a lot about that person's personality. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the rising sign or ascendant sign. It plays a huge role on how that person is going to show up, literally show up. The rising sign tells you how the person is going to show up, right? How he's going to rise. Aries rising people, Aries are it's a big go-getter. It's like it's gonna be, the person's gonna be right in your face, dynamic, go-getter kind of personality, energetic. That's air, that's how Aries are, right? So whatever you see in the first house will tell you a lot about that person. Okay? If you ever decide to go into the deeper advanced aspects of um of astrology and analysis, you can even tell how their height is going to be, what kind of a build they're going to have, all that good stuff. It's very, this sign right here can tell you a lot about the person, including the planets that are going to be sitting in here, but we'll get into that later. Okay. Right now, we just want to look at the chart itself and see how much it can tell us. Any questions up until up until this point? I think it's pretty straightforward. Minus for those who have never touched it before, never touched astrology before. It's totally understandable if you haven't.
So I have one basic question.
Yes, please.
So does it mean we have only 12 unique charts based on person's birth?
Correct.
Okay.
It's going to be the 12 houses. The entire life, your entire life is basically can be put into those 12 houses. Anything and everything that you can think of can be fit into those 12 houses. Anything. And if you ever get into advanced topics, the different houses will even tell you different body parts. It will even tell you different directions. It will even tell you what's placed in your house in what direction. See what I'm trying to say? But then you're getting into really, really advanced aspects, right? But to answer your question, everything can be answered by looking at these 8 houses, or sorry, 12 houses, very easily. Any other questions before we move forward? So this is the third house. Right now, you don't really see any planets sitting here, so we're just talking about the houses, right? This house over here is going to tell you about your communication. Remember, we spoke about the second house, and we said the second house represents your speech, and it tells you how you communicate, not necessarily what you communicate, but how you communicate. And how you communicate is going to be seen, sorry, what you communicate is going to be seen in your third house. The third house shows communication. It also shows documentation, because documentation is also a form of communication. Okay. It represents your younger siblings. Okay. Younger specifically. Older siblings is a different house. We'll get to that. But this is specifically your younger siblings. It also shows the change, it shows a change of residence. Okay. The reason it shows change of residence, there's a point I want to tell you guys before we proceed, is that the 12th house, the house prior to any house, so the third house is the house prior to the fourth house, technically, right? Which is, if you count from the fourth house, third house becomes the 12th house from the fourth house. If you do the math, if you start counting from here, 1, 2, 3, 4 onwards, you'll get to the third house being the 12th house. What I'm trying to say here, the reason I'm telling you this is because the 12th house from any house becomes, it negates that house. It takes away from that house. And what you're about to see in the next slide is that the fourth house represents your domestic environments and your residence. Because the fourth house represents your home, the third house will negate, take away from the fourth house. And therefore, it also shows change in residence. Because when you're moving from one house to another house, what's happening? You're losing that house, right? It's being taken away from you. So therefore, the third house will show a change in residence because you're losing this house, you're moving. So it represents change of residence, along with many, many other things that it will represent. Now, it's just best if we just focus on these few points just to keep it simple, because the number of aspects a house holds, there's no limit. There's literally no limit. It goes as deep as what direction does the third sign represent. There's a direction that Gemini. So there's a direction that Gemini represents. So if you ever get into a question, that's an advanced question. This shows trips, short trips. Okay, short trips, short travels. If you want to see in someone's chart what direction they're going to be they're going to be traveling in, you need to know what direction Gemini represents, and you can decode a whole bunch of stuff about their chart, because this represents travel, short trips. The sign in here, the planets in here will tell you where this person is traveling during a certain time period. Whether that travel is going to be a long travel, whether it's going to be a short distance travel, whether it's going to be like also depending on whether it's a movable sign, fixed sign, dual sign, all that. Everything, there's so much that you can fit into a house, but we're just trying to keep it very, very simple. And then you move on to the fourth house. The fourth house represents your mother. The fourth house is the house of nurturing, really, nurturing and convenience. Those two things, I would say those are the keywords for the fourth house. Nurturing, feeling safe, because you feel safe in your residence, in your home. This is your domestic environment, the fourth house. The reason why fourth house, mother is the fourth house, is also because she nurtures the child. Child feels safe when they're with their mother, right? Fourth house represents mother. It's your residence, specifically your domestic environment. Now, it's your immediate family, right? I wrote family, but it's your immediate family. There's a difference between the second house, because if you go back to the second house, I wrote entire family, and I'll tell you what the reason is, what the difference is between family and the entire family. Second house will represent your entire family. When I say entire family, I mean yes, it does include the people that you live with, but it also includes your grandfather. It includes your uncles, your aunts, your cousins, because your blood family, your bloodline, your entire family is seen from the second house. But when you come to the fourth house, okay, it represents the family that you live with in your domestic environment. So keep that in mind. It's very important. That difference between this family and this family. This is your immediate family, people that you live with. If you're married and you don't live with your parents, this would include your wife, your kids. In case you have any roommates, it all falls under this house right here. Okay. Any questions up until this point? All clear?
Yep.
Before we move forward, can we do a quick quiz? I'm not gonna pick on anyone. If anybody wants to just maybe yell it out. Anyone know what house was money, finances?
Second house.
Correct. Second house. Which house represents your short distance travels, short trips?
Third house.
Third house was pretty good. I would ask you what house represents long distance travels, but I haven't really covered that house yet. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure many of you guys already know, but just still. Okay, so as we discussed, the fourth house also represents luxuries and convenience, different forms of convenience. You can easily also associate luxuries, any sort of luxuries, and vehicles with the fourth house. Reason being is because they are also a form of luxury. Vehicles, you can decide to walk somewhere, you can decide to take the bus, but if you have a car, you have your own vehicle, that's a form of luxury, right? So any sort of convenience, like literally, and if you're sitting in a room and you're sitting in the AC and the AC is turned on, that is also convenience. It's seen in the fourth house. It's your convenience. Okay, any sort of comforts. Now, in the fifth house is the house of creativity, right? It's People will associate this house with two main things: creativity and children. If you think about it, children are something that you create. Whether someone is going to have children, whether they're not going to have children, whether you want to analyze some not so fortunate topics like miscarriages, stillbirths, and all that stuff. While it's harsh, but you got to keep in mind that the people will come to you. They're not going to come to you when everything is going nice and dandy. They will come to you when they're having problems, and problems could be of any level. It could be I'm having miscarriages, I can't have any kids, C-section, and God knows what. So this is where the fifth house will come into play, right? The fifth house. It shows your children, but specifically, it shows your first child. First child is seen from the fifth house. In general, children are, if someone comes to you and asks about children, you're going to go directly to the fifth house. Once you get into the advanced aspects of it, you want to get into the second child, third child, fifth, fourth, fifth, and so on. If you want to keep continuing, then those are different houses. But the general house, the main key house for children, is the fifth house. Okay? The fifth house also represents your intelligence because it's linked with creativity. If the fifth house is damaged, and what I mean by damage, some people may already know, but for those who don't, you'll be able to see by analyzing planets and even the sign that's in there and what other planets are looking at the house, you'll be able to easily determine what kind of intelligence level this person may have or will have. Is this person gonna be intelligent person? Is he gonna be a little slow learner? Because it's also the house of education, right? Sorry, the actual house of education is fifth house, primary education. I didn't write primary, but primary education, basically anything below post-secondary is going to be considered primary education. Anything up until high school. And anything after high school, you'll go into a different house we will discuss later. If someone was to come to you that, hey, here's my child's chart, and I want to know how his studies are gonna go, or what should he or she study, you know, Affliction or negativity on the fifth house, when it impacts your intelligence, okay? When you have certain aspects, afflictions acting on your fifth house, it can also show addictions because addictions directly target your intelligence. Okay. All clear up until this point?
Yes.
Okay. And here's a there's there's three main houses that are the least liked in astrology. Those houses are sixth, eighth, and 12th houses, okay? And the sixth, and why the sixth is the least, one of the least desired houses, you can already tell. Anyone know what the house of health is? What house represents health?
Is it 8?
Nope. Who is this? Eighth house is not the house of health. Anyone else? No.
No.
So the first house is a house of health. Because it's your physical body, it's going to tell me what kind of health you have, how your health is. Positive planet sitting in the first house because it's your physical body, right? It's you entirely. How the first house is looking will tell me how your health is. Sixth house, on the other hand, will tell me what kind of challenges you'll be facing. Okay, what kind of challenges this person will be facing. Sixth house, I didn't write it here. You guys can write it down if you want. Also shows challenges. Challenges, right? Diseases are seen from the sixth house. Open enemies are seen from the sixth house. The reason I say open enemies because some people are going to be right in your face. They'll tell you, I will take you to court and I will do this to you and I will do that to you. Those are open enemies. They're in your face. You know about them. People around you will know that this person is your enemy. There's also hidden enemies. It's a different house. We'll get there. It's also the house of debt. If someone was to approach you and ask you that I want to apply for a mortgage, which essentially is a loan slash debt. If someone's coming to you and ask you, I'm trying to apply for a mortgage for my house. Do you think I'll get it? Depending on what kind of planets are sitting in their sixth house, whether they are allowing or permitting loans during the time period he's approached you. Okay. And not every time period is going to be supportive of everything. Every time period, but that's advanced techniques. That's more of a dynamic technique when you get into different progressions and transits as to what time period is supportive of what action. Okay. So if someone comes to you and tells you that I'm not able to get a mortgage or a car loan or any sort of a loan because we're talking about debt here. And if you go into their analysis and you see that, okay, you know what? Right now, I don't see much support for your sixth house. Okay. I do not see any support during this time period. This time period is not very supportive of your sixth house because sixth house represents debts. But the time period operating 4 months from now seems to be more supportive. So you will tell them, don't even bother applying for any loans up until, where are we right now? Until say November. Because if you put your efforts towards this area of your life in November, because the time period November onwards is supportive of sixth house activities, you will be able to qualify, or the chances of you being able to qualify for a loan will be a lot stronger. Another thing the sixth house represents is competition. And what I mean by competition is not just simply any competition. I mean even writing exams, because essentially when you're writing an exam, you're in a competitive state of mind. It's a form of competition, right? It will tell you, it will tell you, depending on how this house is, whether it's afflicted, whether it's sitting in a good position, will tell you how competitive this person is, how what's his strength, what's his ability to take on competition. Someone comes to you and asks you that I have an exam coming up. I get this all the time. I'm trying to become a nurse. I have my I forget what it's called, registered nurse RN something. Okay, so they come to you. I'm a whatever nurse, but I'm trying to become an RPN, registered nursing practitioner, I guess. I'm not able to pass my exam. I've had people come to me. I failed my exam twice. So what you're gonna see is that the time period, the current transit and time period, is not supportive of the sixth house. And if you see, I'm just giving you a very basic example. If you see that the person's time period in the next 3 months or 2 months, there's a different time period starting, which is going to be supportive of the sixth house activities, which is competitions. You can tell that person maybe you need to wait for another 2 months until you go and write your exam because the stars will be on your side. See what I'm trying to say? Make sense to you guys?
This is Pavan. So how do, like when you say, for example, 2 months, is it based on
It's based
uh
on, again, that's a little, I'm trying to give you guys a
okay.
little pointers of topics. Advanced topics. I don't know how much you guys know about Vedic astrology or any astrology. Essentially, any timing of an event is done by two main aspects. The first one would be progressions, okay, and the second would be transits. The Indian astrology, which is what we are learning here, focuses very heavily on progressions. There is a sequence of progressions that every chart is going to follow. It's going to be the same sequence. It just depending on when you were born. It just tells you where in that sequence your starting point lies. Okay, and that is the dynamic aspect of astrology. And I would say, a lot changes when you switch from static to dynamic. Static is what we're dealing with here. Static will tell you what this person is likely to experience. Dynamic will tell you when those promises will come into play, when you can expect to see those promises. Say, for example, someone comes to you and they have a question about buying a house. See, residence. Someone's trying to buy a house, and they come to you and say, "I'm trying to buy a house." Fourth house activity, residence. Buying a house, fourth house activity. Say their current period is not supportive of the fourth house activities. The current period is supportive of something else, seventh house or sixth house. They won't be able to buy a house during that time period. And that is why astrology is a very amazing guiding tool to let someone know when they should be putting efforts and in what direction. Say your current time period is supportive of third house activities. Okay, third house also shows selling of homes, but buddy's trying to buy a home. So you can tell them you're wasting your time until the time period of your fourth house is going to be operating, because that's when the stars are going to favor you in doing activities related to the fourth house. And buying a property or buying a home is also related to the fourth house. See what I'm trying to say?
Yep, makes
Okay.
sense.
So in a nutshell, to answer your question, again, there's two two ways to look at a chart. The first one is static, what is likely to happen, and the other one is dynamic, when it is going to happen. And the rules change a lot when you switch from static to dynamic. Okay, it's a big switch, and I would recommend people that are either looking to get into predictions or want to turn this into a profession, like I have, they should get into the advanced aspect of astrology, because when people come to you, they want to know when something is going to change, when their current time period is going to change. So it's important for those people who want to go deeper and deeper into astrology and possibly make it their career, or if they even if they just want to do it for fun, right? And that's how I started, just doing it for fun. Okay, so we were at house 6. Any questions up until house 6? Diseases, enemies, debt, competition. All clear up until this point?
Yeah. Yes.
Now this house is going to be another very, very popular house because it shows marriage and partnerships and business. Now, why this is a very, very important house is because it targets two main areas of your major life aspects. One is marriage. Also, relationships can be seen from this house. Business. Okay. Um, okay. So sorry, competition shouldn't be here. Business, spouse. Okay. So someone comes to you and asks you, I want to know about my partner. I want to know about the person I'm going to marry. Okay. If that becomes the case, you're going to go straight to their seventh house because this is the house of their spouse. This is the house of their marriage. And marriage is a form of a partnership. Okay. Someone asks you what kind of a husband or a wife can I expect? This sign combined with what planets are sitting in this sign and combined with what other planets are looking at this house is going to tell you what kind of a partner you can expect. It can also tell you where you may find your partner, whether it's going to be in your neighborhood, right? Your neighborhood. Remember, we spoke about neighborhood. No, hold on. Neighborhood's not here, but third house is also your neighborhood. Short trips would also show your neighborhood. If you see any linkage between the seventh house and the third house, we will get into all that good stuff later as to how you're gonna look at combinations, connections between homes. But if you see a connection between seventh house and the third house, right? Short distance travels, neighbors, it is the chances are very high that you're gonna find a partner that doesn't live too far from where you are. Okay? Because it's short distance travels. This is not long distance travels. This represents short distance travels. So this will tell you if you see connection between a connection between the seventh house and the third house, hey, the person is not too far from you. And it's also the third house also represents. I know I'm throwing a little extra at you guys right now. Just will help you understand and think a little more. Third house is also the house of younger siblings. You see someone's seventh house of spouse. Okay, say the person's not married yet. They come to you. How am I going to meet my spouse? You see a connection between the seventh house of spouse and the third house. Also safe to assume that you could be introduced to your spouse by your younger siblings. How exactly will you know whether it's younger siblings or will this person be in your immediate neighborhood? You know, third house also shows online activities, by the way. So seventh combined with third, you can also meet your person online over online dating. Okay. You can write it down if you guys are writing it down. Third house is also the house of online activities. We'll get into more and more aspects, more and more meanings of the house with time. Right now, I just want to go over the basics because the more I throw at you at once, the more you'll get confused. Okay. Now here's you remember earlier today we discussed that sixth house is the house of enemies. Okay. Enemies, also challenges, also it's also you can write it down. It's also difference of opinion, right? Difference of opinion, competition, enemies. Okay. It's also the house of divorce. I'll tell you why it's the house of divorce. As we discussed earlier, that the 12th house from any house, right? So if you count from here, from the house of marriage, 12 houses from here will be the sixth house. The 12th house from any house is going to damage that house. If this is the house of marriage, then automatically this house is going to damage the marriage. It's going to take away from the marriage. Just like the third house of moving was moving because it takes away from your residence. Your residence has to be taken away from you in order for you to move. Same with 7 and 6. This is going to be a very hot topic going forward because when you start getting clients, when you start getting people asking you questions, this is going to be a hot topic. When you see 7th house connected with the 3rd house, how am I going to find my spouse? Maybe my younger siblings, maybe short distance travels, my neighborhood. 7th house making connections with the 6th house. A lot of competition, a lot of enemy like activities between my spouse and me, right? Now there's connection. The energy of enemies and competition and difference of opinion has now been mixed with the 7th house of marriage. This is the starting point. I'm not saying if the 6th house gets connected with the 7th house, it's automatically gonna translate into a divorce, but you'll start seeing static. And depending on how many malefic, bad, negative planets are making this combination happen, will tell you whether this conflict is going to lead to a separation or possibly a full-out divorce. Okay, am I making sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, guys, astrology is a very simple science. It's all about different combinations and permutations between homes, between houses and planets and signs. It's all it is. Once you're able to decode that, you'll be able to answer questions very fast and efficiently. Back to the 7th house. The 7th house also represents businesses because essentially it's a partnership, right? Just like a marriage is partnership. But business is also seen from the 7th house. Your 7th house, people come to you, people are coming to you and asking you how my business is going to go. Or is it even the right time for me to do business? Someone may come to you and ask you, hey, I've started this business about 5 months ago and I am not doing very well. I'm facing a lot of losses. And you see that and you notice that the time period he's currently going through is not supportive of the 7th house. It's supportive of the 6th house. There's one more thing you guys can write down in your 6th house um, list is jobs. Not business, but jobs. So if someone, okay, so 6th house alongside all of these good things, amazing things, it also represents jobs because it also represents routine, and a job represents a form of a routine. So someone's 7th house, someone's come to you and asking you, hey, I've opened this business, it is doing horrible, I'm not getting anywhere with this. what's going on, and you see that the time period they're currently going through is not supportive of the seventh house. In fact, it's supportive of the sixth house. When it's supportive of the sixth house and you're trying to do seventh house related activities, it is going to harm you because we just discussed that the 12th house from any house is going to damage the house. When that time period is supportive of sixth house related activity, which is a job, but you're trying to do business, you will suffer. Okay. Does that make any sense? So, as we had discussed, three houses are the least liked houses because they are painful houses. 6, 8, and 12. This is the second most disliked house. Okay. I'll tell you why. And we're gonna wrap up after this after this slide and continue next time. Eighth house is the house of pain and suffering. Simply pain and suffering and major transformations. Okay. As you can probably understand that no major transformation will come without major discomfort or pain and suffering. When you're trying to transform yourself, it's a great idea to do it when your eighth house is operating in your transit or in your progressions, because that's when it's going to be supportive. Otherwise, it can show pain, suffering, problems. Remember we said that sixth house is the house of diseases? Remember? If you see a connection between the sixth house of diseases in someone's chart, and they've come to you asking you that, hey man, I'm having health issues for the past 5 months. And you see that in in their transit and their progression, the sixth house is active. So you can tell them, you know that they're experiencing disease, okay, in the sixth house related time. But you can also see that in the next 4 months, their eighth house is also going to become active along with the sixth house. So what are you going to tell that person when you see that right now he's going through his sixth house aspect activities, and he's already suffering from disease, and now the next progression, the next time period is going to be also going to be taking eighth house into account alongside the sixth house. That's when you need to tell that person to be very careful, because now this disease, because it's going to combine with the eighth house, is going to become chronic, right? It was just a disease, and now it's going to become chronic because the eighth house represents pain, suffering, and problem. When the sixth house is connected to this eighth house, you can connect basically the points that you see in the sixth house right here. Diseases. Or even if it was enemies, persons facing enemies. Whatever the issue is, whether it's litigation with enemies, court cases, it's going to become worse. Okay. Because it shows us problems, suffering, and pain. Simple. You need to slowly, with time, you'll see how to combine houses, and that's how you'll be able to answer questions. Besides pain, suffering, and problems, it is also the unearned money, which is not really your money. So say your eighth house is operating, you can expect unearned money like inheritance. And because inheritance is also a form of unearned money that is not really yours. Can anyone tell me? I know it's a little advanced. If someone knows, then they know. If not, then no problem. I'll tell you. Can anyone tell me why the eighth house is not your money, it's the other person's money? No? Okay. We missed a point here in the seventh house. The seventh house, along with partnerships and marriage and spouse, cancel competition, sorry, and business, it also represents other people. Because if this is you, the first house was you, if we went back to the very first point, very first slide, the first house was you in every way. It just totally represents you. If the first house is you, then directly opposite of your house is the house of other people that you interact with, that you meet. Okay, in general. I'm not talking about necessarily friends or family. General interaction with other people represents seventh house, other people. It's right across from where you are. So your opposition, if you want to call it so, the person you interact with on a regular basis. So if the second house is your money, then the second house from this house becomes other people's money. Make any sense? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes.
Um,
If there's
Yes.
any confusion, just let me know. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this again. This is me. First house is us. It's whoever chart it is, it's him, not us, sorry. So this is my chart, and this is me. This is Johnny right here. And this is Johnny's money, because we had already discussed that the second house is your wealth. It's this person's, whoever's chart it is, it's their wealth. And the person and the people he will be interacting with on a regular basis. Okay, if it's a business, then he will be interacting with people on a daily basis. If the second house from this house, from me, shows my wealth, my earned wealth, then the second house from the other people shows their wealth. That's also a way of looking at a chart. Does that make any sense? Yes, no? Anyone? Is it confusing? Hello? Anyone? Okay, so because it is the other people's money, it represents unearned money. Someone's typing. Clear so far, a bit confusing, but maybe we need to see examples. Yeah, Jen, you'll see examples with time. Right now, it's also if you, I'm gonna share this video with you guys. And when you watch the video from the beginning, it will make more sense. Okay. For now, you just need to understand that the second house from any house, right? So the second house shows money, and it shows earned money, your earned money. This is you. Your earned money becomes second house. This is your, this is also your spouse. So this could also be your spouse's money. Second from your spouse shows their money. Okay. Because the money that is shown in the eighth house is not your money is right here. This is the other people's money. Inheritance is essentially not your money, it's other people's money. Therefore, eighth house also shows inherited wealth. Right? Remember, we said this. If this is confusing, just listen to the video again. I'll share the video with you guys. In fact, I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna send you my email address. So if if you email me on that, I can just send you the PDFs and all that good stuff, and it will be easy for you. Give me 1 second. Okay, this is the email I just sent to you. If you want this stuff sent to you, including all the videos that I'll be uploading that you can watch anytime, just email here and I will send you the videos. Gmail.com. Yeah. Okay. So the eighth house becomes the house of other people's money, which is inheritance as well. Okay. So this is so first, this is what we've done. What we've done up until this point is up until the eighth house. The next session we'll proceed with houses 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay. Any questions before we wrap it up for the day? It could be anything about the course, about what we've learned today, what you can expect to learn in the next classes, and how this is going to work. Any questions? You can also text it to me, like Jen has been. No? Everything is clear as mud? Okay, Jen, will we get invites for the next session? Yes, Jen, you will get invites for the next session. And if usually what I do is I will create a next meetup again, the meetup session, and I will definitely, it's up to you if you guys want to join that or not, or if you shoot me, basically what I've done with the previous batch, people who were here before you guys, the previous batch, they sent me their email addresses, and what I did was I sent them the Zoom link as well as the recording of these classes, because it becomes really helpful if you're able to watch these classes again, which is really going to help you just strengthen your foundation. Because so this what we're learning here is going to be basic, but I'm trying to strengthen your base, because once your base is strong, you will be able to derive your own formulas. You'll be able to look at a house, combination of houses, and answer people's questions, you know. What I want to do here is I want to help you. I want to give you guys some of the very basic dots, and I want to help you guys understand how to connect the dots, because that's what you won't find in the YouTube videos much. How to connect dots. When someone comes to you and asks you, how can I make money? Or what can I do for work? What is the best profession for me? How can you look at a chart and say, okay, boom, 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 and boom, here's what you can do as a profession. And here's what you can do to make money, because making money is not necessarily always your profession. You could be an IT consultant, but you sell homes on the side. So your profession becomes an IT consultant. Your way of making money is being a real estate agent. See what I'm trying to say? So yeah, I've shared my email address here, gmail.com. It's also in the description of the course on Meetup. You guys can find it there. Just shoot me an email. I'll shoot you guys the link to the next classes, including the recordings of this class. Okay? So we'll end it here, guys. Any questions, you can always email me or just shoot me an email, and we'll go from there. Okay? Jessica's iPhone. It was a great session. Thanks so much. Looking forward to the next session. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Okay, perfect. Glad you guys liked it. I'll see you guys again next Saturday. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.